The role of use for peaceful consist ዝብል ኣርእስቲ ሒዛህልና መፅላ ፌሩዝ ሃፍትና እዚ ከዓነ እቲ ከም ኤርትራውያን ኣብ ስደት ኣብ ሃገርና ኣብ ዙርያና ዘለዋ ሃገራት እንዳተዋጋእናዮ በንፃር ብፅልኢ ብህልኽ እንነብሮ ዘለና ኣብ ሰላም ምንባር እንታይ ይመስል ኣብ ዝብል እዚ ህኮትን ኩናትን ጎንፅን ፅልእን ዳርጋ 30 ዓመት ሓሊፍና ኢና ንሰብ ዙርያና ዘለዋ ሃገራት በቲ ስርዓት ብዝተሳርሐልና መንገዲ ኣብዚ ሰላም ምንባር ግን እንታይ ይመስል ብዝብል ፌሩዝ ሃፍትና ተምፀላሞ ናብ ፌሩዝ ከመሓላልፈኩም ባክግራውንድ ክገርኪ ናብኡ እንድሕረ ንፅሕና ደስ ብለኒ ፌም ታንክስ
እሺ thank you ቀነለይ ሰላም everyone okay ሹመይ ፌሩዝ ይባሃል ፌሩዝ ተስፋይ ፌሩዝ መብራህቱ ተስፋይ actually ግን ኣብ ዛዕዲ ብሰር ኔም ናትካ ስለ ትፅዋዕ ኢለ ተስፋይ ኢለ ኣብ ለንደን እየ ዝነብር ኣባል ትንሳኤ እየ ኣብ ምስ መራሕቲ ኮይነ እሰርሕ and ቅድሚኡ ምስ በቲ ግዜ ውግእ በስቲ ዋይን ኮይነ ትግራይ ዩት ኔትወርክ ኮይነ እሰርሕ ነረ ኣብዚ ግዜ ማለት and ምስ ካልኦት organizations fundraising ንገብር advocacy ኩሉ ማለት እዩ in Tigray I'm going to first introduce who Tesfai is because I'm sure there's some people who might not know who Tesfai is and then I will move on to the main topic if that's okay. So Tesfai is a civic organization. It was established in 2021 by both Eritreans and Tagaru in the UK. So during the peak of the genocidal war, members of the Eritrean community in Tigray and grassroots organizations collaborated on anti-genocide efforts. This was they were united against misinformation, and this joint endeavor worked to pressure governments, raise funds, coordinate community actions. So everything that we were doing against the genocide that was taking place in Tigray, as we all know. And aimed to pressure governments, raise funds, coordinate community actions, and from that, they wanted to streamline both initiatives, and so they later formed the Resurrection of the People of Tigray and Eritrea, which was, in short, it was called Tesfai because Tesfai means resurrection in English, and in Tigrinya, Tesfai is Tesfai, and it is with a vision of re-establishing our community in terms of especially if the Tigrinya speaking in both countries, but Eritreans and Tagarus as a whole. And then in Holland, a similar group consisting of Eritreans and Ethiopians had existed over 10 years, known as Mahbar Salam Ethiopians and Eritreans. Tesfai, in collaboration with other groups as well as Mahbar Salam, organized a global solidarity conference. I'm sure some of you have seen it in Frankfurt, Germany, and then recognizing similarities in their global goals and objectives. Both organizations paved the way for a merger, which acknowledging this, they evolved to what it is called today. So today is called the Resurrection for Peace and Justice to the people of Tigray and Eritrea. So the name consists of Mahbar Salam. Salam, yeah. And peace means salam in Tigrinya. So this is fueled by a shared understanding that we both have a shared heritage and an outrage against what's happened, the genocide that took place in Tigray, which is obviously aimed at eradicating our people, and which is something that has happened before in history. And in order for us to work together to stop this continuing, and that's how Tesfai was formed. Now Tesfai has become international with representatives in Europe, Canada, the US, and Tigray. Ultimately, we obviously work to ensure our collective survival. I'm going to move on to the missions and objectives. So the missions and objectives of Tesfai, as I put it on the PowerPoint, these are some of the missions and objectives, of course, not all of them. I couldn't fit everything in that. So one is to support the people of Tigray and Eritrea in seeking justice, understanding what we both have been through as a people, as a collective people, working together for our collective survival was important, and so we work together in justice seeking, and of course supporting people in back home. The support today is mainly focused in Tigray for obvious reasons, because the genocide is still continuing, but it supports everybody in Tigray, which means Eritreans and Tagaru who are affected by the genocide that took place and that is still taking place. And the next bit is to cultivate trust and camaraderie between the two people. So we understand that over years, what's happened by the regime in Eritrea, by different regimes in the country, over the years in Ethiopia as well, it has been used to sow hate between the two people. Tensai wants to work against that. It wants to be the push factor against that and say, no, we don't have to continue like this. We can pave a different path for ourselves by working together, because our collective survival is dependent on each other's survival. Furthermore, it initiates efforts and promotion of cultural heritage, and initiating efforts which work to contribute to peace and stability in the Horn of Africa. And eventually, once peace has reigned, which it will one day, social and economic cooperation and sustainable solutions to our issues that we face. Briefly, I'm going to explain what we've done so far, what Tensai has been doing so far. So like I said earlier, we've collaborated with like-minded organizations such as Felsi today, Mahata, Teddy Press, Asana TV, Mahabar Salam, many more groups. I can't name everyone. And which means raising funds, raising awareness, speaking, talking, and having conversations about what's happening and what has happened in our past history, and also organizing events for community mobilization and engagement, gathering parts of the UK to unite people and promote Tensai. And then we've also done fundraising and relief efforts. So over the years, Tensai has organized and contributed significant financial contributions to various causes, notably, most recently, in a recent initiative with the Eritrean diaspora media activists advocating for regime change in Eritrea. We have, and other organizations, we have raised over $250,000. And this is currently being distributed all over Tigray, such as in Aksum, Basaneti, Adwa, Adagrat, many more areas, and supporting them as a relief effort. And it's supporting everybody, so includes Eritreans and Tagaro, of course. And I just want to say, obviously, and we are now in the next phase of distributing this funds. I wanted to say personally, it was heartwarming to witness everyone coming together for a noble cause. This was obviously a testament to the embodiment of what Tensai ethos is. This is exactly what we want to see, but in bigger, more better, and in other areas, not just fundraising, but community mobilization, working together. It can also be, I don't know, pressuring different governments in different areas by working together, because there is power in community and collaboration. So next. So next is why Tensai. Some people might ask this question: why have a group like Tensai? Why can't we just have separate groups and then do our job and sometimes collaborate? The reason mainly is because the historical genocide perpetrated against our people in recent history, notably in recent history, which means the genocide, of course, the main genocide and the most worst out of it all took place recently in Tigray, but this didn't start today. The genocide of Tagaru, and when I say Tagaru, I'm referring to both Tigrinya speakers, especially in Eritrea and in Tigray, started before Minilik, but during Minilik, so many people died. And excuse me. So many, I think it was over 230,000 people, Tagarus, died during Minilik. And of course, the separation of the two people, and that is purely, as they said themselves, Minilik and his comrade said, it is to separate our people and to create more tension between us. Of course, it was followed by Haile Selassie, and it was followed by Mengistu, as we know. And during this time, I think over 2 million Tigrinya speakers only were killed. Now is 1.5 million Tagaros were killed. And that is discounting the people that fought against Tigray, who are also mainly Tigrinya speakers from Eritrea. And so we look at that, and we look at that there is a specific targeting of our people. And so it's about, how do we combat that? How do we come together and say, no, we can't have this anymore. We need to be able to work together and promote our survival. Because unless we do this, we will be extinct, especially seeing the mass immigration out of Tigray and Eritrea. And I just wanted to continue. Tragically, fast forward 30 years, we find ourselves facing yet another devastating chapter in our history. The central government of Ethiopia, under the leadership of Abiy, obviously we know what's happened. So I wanted to add to that, the pursuit of justice for the atrocities committed against our people was regrettably neglected. So truth-finding, justice and reconciliation efforts were sidelined, allowing the wounds of the past to fester without resolution. So what we see here is that every time there was a genocide committed against our people, we never sought justice for it. So anytime somebody that, I don't know, maybe when the TPLF was in power or EPLF came to, I don't know, the 91 independence came, there was not any justice seeking in that space. Nobody seeked justice for the amount of people that we lost during the 17-year war for Tigray and 30-year war for Eritrea, or during the Menelik era, or from the Haile Selassie era. So what starts to happen is that because there was no justice seeked, these history has been put under the carpet, like nothing happened. 2 million people died during the Derg. It was nothing. Nobody got reprimanded for it. Nobody was made as an example of what not to do. And so this was repeated. And again, I think like organizations like Omna had to do a lot of educating on what our history is as Tagaro in Ethiopia. So we found it important to work on breaking this vicious cycle of violence and division that has plagued our region for far too long. Pursuing justice, peace, and reconciliation is a paramount endeavor. We must confront the injustices of the past and present. It is imperative that we use the correct language to describe injustice that took place, that has harmed the Tigrinya speakers and Tagaru as a whole, and then work to hold perpetrators accountable and strive for healing and unity amongst our people. So how do we do that? By rejecting the divisive tactics employed by previous rulers and present-day fascists, we can chart a new path towards a future built on justice, equality, and mutual respect. I just want to say that, most often, I remember during the war, there was this, campaign, the No More group were using, this is the West tactic of division between Eritrea. They just want to divide Ethiopians or whatever. And I found it interesting because that's exactly what they like to use against our people. They divide us, they make each other the enemy, and then we fight, and then we give them more ammunition. By doing that, they get to last longer in their power. So our job is to fight against that and find strategies and ways we can fight against that. So therefore, Tesfai is formed for us to stand together in solidarity and commitment to ending the suffering of our people and forging a brighter future for generations to come. This starts by creating a community with this type of vision. Lastly, the freedom of Tagaro is interlinked with the freedom of the Eritrean people and others around, and vice versa. The freedom of Eritrea is also intrinsically bound to the freedom of Tigray. If Tigray is not free, Eritrea will never be free. And if Eritrea is not free, ultimately, we will always be in this war, so Tigray will never be free. This is why the Tesfai is important. And this is why I've joined it, because I feel like it's not a short-term sort of solution. It's a long-term solution to a long-term issue that we have, both communities. Saying that, I'm going to move on to the role. Sorry. I've forgotten my own title. The role of youth, the role of youth for justice, reconciliation, and peaceful coexistence. Before I go on to that, I'm going to briefly explain what each term means. So, what is justice, peace, and reconciliation? Briefly, I'm just going to give you a definition of what peace, justice, and reconciliation is. Of course, this is not, the or the definition that only exists. So peace, in brief, it means peace is a state of harmony characterized by the absence of violence, conflict, and tension. It also goes on to explain that peace is a state of harmony characterized by the absence of violence, conflict, and tension. It encompasses not only the absence of war, but also the presence of conditions that promote social stability, cooperation, mutual respect among individuals and communities. So what does that mean? Peace is not just for example, they like to describe what's happening in Tigray as peace. Some like to explain that or describe it as it's not peace. That's just guns have been silenced for now, and we don't know how long that is. However, peace is it's not just the violence has ended, although not all violence has ended in Tigray, as we know. Like it says here, it's the absence of war and the presence of conditions that promote social stability. So we need to be able to have conditions that continue to promote social stability and cooperation amongst ourselves and mutual respect among individuals and communities. And to be able to create communities, we need those conditions to be in place. That can be democracy, that can be the ability, freedom. Freedom is one of the main things. If we have no freedom, we have no peace, essentially. Peace-building efforts aims to address the root cause of conflict, such as poverty, inequality, and discrimination, and to establish sustainable peace through dialogue, negotiations, and reconciliation. So this whole PowerPoint that I've made is about how can we involve youth in these type of work, in peace building and in justice seeking and reconciliation. So justice, briefly, justice refers to the fair and equitable treatment of individuals and groups within a society. It involves upholding the rule of law, ensuring that laws are applied impartially, and provide mechanisms for resolving disputes and addressing grievances. Justice includes both procedural justice, ensures fair legal processes, and substantial justice, ensuring fair outcomes and the protection of human rights. It also encompasses accountability for wrongdoings, including the punishment of perpetrators and reparation for victims. So justice is about correcting the wrong that has been done. It can be on an individual or a group of people. So on how do we do that? We need a mechanism. We need an environment which can implement the correct justice, because some people can take justice into their own hand, and that could result in conflict, in war, or something of that nature. Briefly, reconciliation involves the restoration of relationship and the healing of division between individuals or groups that have been in conflict. It requires acknowledging past wrongs, promoting forgiveness, understanding and building trust and mutual respect. Reconciliation process may include truth-telling, apology, restitution, efforts to address the underlying cause of conflict. The goal of reconciliation is to create a shared vision of the future based on justice, peace, and cooperation. So I just want to say, if we don't have justice, we don't have peace. And if we don't have peace, we don't have reconciliation. We will be in perpetual conflict, as Tigray and Eritrea is the prime example of, a violence to the whole entire world. Can we go next? Okay. Sorry? Okay. Okay, I'll probably need about another 10 minutes, sorry. So just briefly, I wanted to touch on the history of the youth. So now I'm going to move on to the youth side. How has young people changed society? Where have they implemented change? And who changes society as a whole? From my studies and from my research, I studied history as an undergrad. The people that have changed and have brought about change, whether we consider it good or bad, that's up for debate, is the youth mainly. The youth have energy, they have drive, and in the past and even today, the youth have always pressured those in power, because those people that are feared the most are the youth in society. When the youth get together, they are the most feared, especially the young men, because they are military age men. They fear them. If military age men come together and work together for change, it always happens. But the changes have been implemented by both, obviously, genders. I'm not discounting that. So I have examples here of people who've contributed to our society, the change that's happened across the world. Earlier on, I can't remember her name, I'm so sorry, but she was speaking about Black Lives Matter and the movement that's happened. How, so generally Black Americans, this is a side note, Black Americans and Caribbeans have been the leading, the people that influenced, for example, the decolonization in Africa. They are the brains behind, they influence that. And I think we don't understand history, so we tend to discount that. So people like Sarah Parker Raymond and Frederick Douglass, they were, I think Frederick Douglass was about 19 years old. He was a slave who escaped slavery and became one of the pioneers of anti-slavery movement in, he was an abolitionist in America. Sarah Parker was also an activist for human rights, and she was a woman suffragette, so she was part of that. And she made her first public speech against the institution of slavery when she was 16. She was only 16. And people like Claudette, I don't know if we know, some people might know about Rosa Parks, but Rosa Parks wasn't the first woman to sit on a bus and say to refuse against the segregation, to refuse to get up, because buses were segregated in America, as we know, and Black people couldn't sit, for example, at the front of the bus. They had to go to the back. And because of that, Claudette was actually one of the first girl who said, I don't want to get up. She was tired. I think she was coming back from work and she was pregnant. She said, I don't want to get up. And she was arrested. And that was what influenced people like Rosa Parks, organizations like the NAACP, to use these kind of tactics and put Rosa Parks at the front. And then, obviously, most notably, our own people. We look at the movements. Granted, we have problems with each, I don't know, with EPLF, ELF, TPLF, etc. But they were youth. They were 15, 16 years old who joined these movements and went and sacrificed. A lot of people became veterans. We were told not to use the word sacrifice yesterday. They became veterans for the freedom that was hijacked later on in Eritrea, but yes, for our freedom in today. So why should young people be involved in peace building and reconciliation? Because mass movements against war, social justice, and revolution, as I've just explained, have always started by young people. And also the fact that no one has a monopoly on peace building. Most so often, we always see young people at the forefront. So we put young people at war, we give them guns, we tell them you're old enough to kill people, but you're not old enough to sit on the tables when we are talking about reconciliation, when we're talking about peace building, when we're talking about these different things. They have to also be at the forefront. And so that's the reason. And it's usually, for example, we saw it with what happened in South Africa with Tigray and Ethiopia, whatever that was. It was only elderly men that were put on the tables. There was no women, there was no young people. The people that died and that were at the receiving end of this were women as a whole, and young men and women, but they were not put on those tables in the negotiation tables. And so it's very important they should be at the front. And I've got a quote there. When the whole world is silent, one voice becomes powerful. And this is because I think every young person has a voice and should be able to use it. Collective work within community are always needed. So we need to work with everyone. We need to work with women. We need to work with men. We need to work with young people. We need to work with everybody, because everybody is part of that society. And if you are part of that society, then you have a voice, and you should have the voice to contribute to the changes that take place in that society. And what's needed to empower young people in the diaspora, so Eritreans and Tagaros? I think we've seen during the war that many of the I know someone who was speaking from the Omna Tigray. She was talking about a lot of young women were in basically Omna Tigray is mainly women. And I think what I've noticed is also in all the other Tagaro organizations, most of the people that were at the forefront were young women, but not to discount the other people's work, but young women were at the front of it. But generally, it was young people that were leading it. Young people were contacting MPs or members of parliament. We call them MPs in this country. I don't know what you guys call them, members of our parliaments. Young people were organizing protests. They were at the forefront. But it's not that they don't have the power. It's just that maybe we are more reactive than we are proactive. And these are some of the problems I notice within our diaspora young people, especially diaspora young people who are born and bred in our respective countries in the West. Young diasporas feel detached from the issues affecting our homeland. So what does this mean? That means that they don't feel that the issues that are affecting Eritrea or Tigray or Ethiopia or whatever, from wherever we're from, really affects them personally. So because it doesn't personally affect them, they don't feel the emotional attachment to sorting this problem out. They also might feel powerless and feel disheartened by the continuous failing state of their homeland. Most of us were born after this, what's happened after maybe 94, 95 in the West, or maybe even 91. So we're looking at after the war against the Derg. That means that we've always seen this part of the world, especially Eritrea, in that condition. So to us in the West, we're like, it's always been like that. I can't do much about it. So why should I try? There is that feeling. And I think everything starts off having an understanding and an emotional reaction, especially in movements like this. And because they don't feel they can impact change, then they don't do it. And then the solutions, I think, and as Tensae, we also believe, is that we have to create civic spaces where they are encouraged to take spaces and have frank conversations. So how do we bring Tagaros and Eritreans in one room, especially young people, because they are the future? How do we bring them in one room and actually talk about our history, talk about our past, talk about our present situation in Tigray, what's happening in Tigray and Eritrea, and talk about what could we possibly do to change that. Creating networking spaces amongst their own peers, which closes the gap between young Eritreans and Tigrayans. This is what I've just explained. And cultivation of cultural and heritage knowledge. Most young people know maybe our music, maybe know how to speak. Some people know how to speak the language. Some people's broken. Some of us are trying harder. And it's when we don't have a clear understanding or knowledge of our culture, not just knowing that, for example, we wear warki and zuria to weddings or whatever, but actually understanding behind why we wear warki, why we wear zuria, why we have, I don't know, the woman can't get out of her house when she has a baby for, I don't know, for 6 weeks or whatever. Having an understanding of this and having a knowledge of this will play into their emotional attachment to their own homeland. Most people don't understand our culture. Most people don't understand our religious background. Most people don't know our history. They know, for example, you look like your environment most of the time. If you're bred in a household where you are told that the regime in Eritrea is correct and they are who they are, then you're going to support the regime in Eritrea. You're not going to come out of that type of mentality. Of course, young people must take responsibilities for their own way of thinking. But if we can provide alternative spaces where young people can come together and understand their cultural and heritage, then that will give more attachment to their homeland. I think we need to also make young people understand that this is not our ultimate home. If we always stay and remain here, we have to have some sort of hope instilled in them that one day you can return home. But in order for you to return home, you need to have a home to return to that's peaceful, that you can build. And how do you do that is the question for me. And that's, I guess that's part of the giving them hope, showing them that change can happen. How can, so the next slide is, how can young people contribute to peace and reconciliation? Firstly, believe. So for me, I think it's firstly believe you can implement change and you're halfway there. Most people feel, like I said earlier, whatever they do here, they can't impact, it doesn't impact back home because they don't have the understanding of how, maybe how whatever action they take here can impact their country. And that can obviously, they lose hope in that. I have a Stokely Carmichael there. He was originally from Trinidad who went to America, and he is the godfather, one of the fathers of Black Power. The idea of Black Power generally from the Black Panthers and Black Power. And he said, this is my message to Africans: organize, organize, organize. Organization is important. I think we need to study how being organized in a movement impacts change. So when we look at like the 1960s Black rights movement in America, it was incredibly organized. And I think for me, in my opinion, when the organization starts to fail, the impact that they had started to slow down. So for example, we have like the NAACP, which are the National Association of Colored People, I think. They used to do training. So there's a picture on my PowerPoint. There is like two men blowing smoke and throwing egg on a person. So this was a training for one of the sit-ins that they did. So they would go to cafeterias, to cafes, because it was white only cafes, and they will sit there as Black people, and white people would actually do stuff. They'll spit on them, they throw eggs on them, they'll hit them. And the organizations like the NAACP, used to train people. So one of the pictures actually people being trained in one room on how to handle violence when you go out there, when you're actually doing these movements. So I think organization, get involved. So being involved in all the organizations that exist. So there's so many organizations that are here. Use social media strategically, take up spaces and use platforms. That means use every platform. Use your school, use your job, use the government, use every space that you have to bring more awareness and to be brave and have no fear. Like, go up to people and talk to people about the issues that you're facing in your country, what it is and how they can also help. Also, I said talk more and share experiences. And Chimamanda Adichie is she's an amazing Nigerian writer. She's from the Igbo tribe. And she said, the single story creates stereotypes. And the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. And she talks about the issue of a single story. I think she has like a video on that on YouTube. And it's about how narratives create stereotypes. And these stereotypes creates obviously propaganda, which is basically propaganda, and creates something like genocide in Tigray, And so it's about being able to question narratives. As a young person, when you receive an information, it's about saying, who said this? When did this happen? How did this happen? Where are you getting this information from? Let me go and research myself. Is this true? Is this untrue? How does this impact me? How does it impact my family? How does it impact society? And talk more and share experiences. Like I said earlier, share your experiences with everyone. Get people involved. I don't care if they're white, Black, brown, get them involved in the issues that you are facing as a society, as your people. And, that will eventually build up. So the question now is, do we have hope? does young people have hope? We've looked at all these issues that we're facing. Do we have hope? So, seeing the efforts of young Tigrayans in the last 2.5 years, and seeing the impact that Tagaros have made, especially young Tagaros in the diaspora, to me, that is incredible. The work that has been done by the young Tagaros in diaspora, from organizing protests, meeting MPs, going to different events, whatever it is. They've done it all. Anything you can think of, Tagaros did it, and other Eritreans as well. Also, the wave of the movements by the young Eritrean youths, generally, we see it today. We see the awakening happening on social media. Yes, social media is a little scary, especially TikTok, but we see a lot of people waking up to what's happening and being brave and speaking out. And of course, we have people like Brigade Nahamadu doing what they're doing. Some people might support them, some people may not support them. But every movement that is against a regime that is as evil as the PFDJ regime is needed, and it's very important. It's very cool. Every movement, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. They add on and they create a big impact at the end. And I think it's about supporting people, and maybe we might see some things that maybe we may not agree with, but it's always about coming up with solutions to these issues. Also, just generally, like I said, there's more awareness in people. More people know about the issues that are happening in Tigray, or what's happened. That it's not an issue of genocide, and what's the tremendous human rights and abuses that has happened in Eritrea. And so, because of movements like this, because of the impact that Brigade Nahamud is having and the Tagaros everywhere are doing. So, I think that's it. Do I have more? No. Thank you for listening to me. I hope that helps.
ታንኪ ፌሩስ ብጣዕሚ ደስ ዝብል ቀኒልና ኣብዚ ሕቶታት ተልይኩም ሓንቲ ሕቶ ጥራሕ ሃንቅበል ምክንያቱ እቲ ግዜ ነዊሑ ስለ ዘሎ ሰርክለይት ሓሊፉ ዳርጋ ምስ ስራ ኮይኑ ኣሎ ስለዚ መዕፀዊ ስለ ዘለና ሓንቲ ሕቶ ዘሎ ቀዳምነት ኢድ ሓፍ ዘበለና ኮይና ኦኬ ፌቡና ባይ
First of all, wonderful presentation. And I am so proud that you were able to touch upon the points that I wanted to, but I didn't because of short time. And, but I like how you said, this is possible, we can do this. And I know that you are in an organization that's a coalition of Eritrean and Tagaru. Are you guys do you guys have ongoing projects right now, working on those things that you were highlighting? Is there anything like common advocacy and stuff being done, and how's the progress?
So in terms of advocacy, that is, we are a kind of small team, but we are working on that currently because we've been focusing on the relief effort in Tigray. It's not as, we are doing it thoroughly, and we're obviously distributing it everywhere with Tesfai representatives as well as other people. But we are that is our next goal, is to work on advocacy work for both sides. But we have worked on advocacy before. So we've met up with MPs, I think, and with different organizations. They do a lot of, for example, with Felsi. I know they do a lot of organization with Felsi as well. So yes, that is definitely part of the work. And yeah, don't know if that answers your question.
That's awesome. It's fair enough. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks ያንልና ኩላትኩም ተሳተፍቲ ሕጂ ከዓ ናብ ግዜያዊ ኣቦ ወንበር ፈልሲ ሰላም ዲሞክራሲን ናብ መምህር የሴፍ ገብረ ሂወት ከሰጋግረኩም እየ ብኦ ጌርና ከዓ መዕፀዊ ክንገብር ኢና ስለዚ ቀኒልና ናብ የሴፍ
Thanks a lot, Fayruz. ብጣዕሚ ኢና ነመስግነኪ it was very detailed and you touched almost everything about Tesfai in the way you have been working there. انت اخذ دليل معصون ياخذ قبروا تقول زلزلخ بخصوص جمر بناي فيروز ها كلت راح تستبهل كل النقرات مالتنا حدا يجي مثالي تمامان كان جوز اديشي كتذكرها خلانو ها يا يقبو in fact حنتي مصحف صحيح الله هاف من قال لي تبلا كنت remember the title exactly the basically تا مصحف بزعبه Igbolan Tagabre genocide in here, ማለት ነው. So one could learn a lot from that genocide and the parallels ምስናይ Tigray genocide. But not only that, remember that almost all of the have been noting almost all of the people that she was quoting from Shalka Malcolm X, Carmichael, and of course Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. All of them are either Black Americans or Black Africans from Nigeria. حجين تاعتا ነገር ነራ አንተ ወይ ንዛረበላ ነገር ነራ ሁሉ ጊዜ ነው why do we need to know about ሻለካ ካባና ወፃኢ ማለት ነው ካብታ ኤርትራውነት ትብል ታ ማእሰርቲ ኮይና ዘላ ካብኦም ውፃእ እንታይ ማለት ትብልሲ already ሻለካ ፈይሩዝ ጽቡቅ ያራጥያና አላ ከመይ ጌርና ካብኣቶም ትምህርቲ ክንረክብ ከም ንኽእልሲ ጽቡቅ ያራ ትምህርቲ ሂባህና ማለት እዩ ካልእ እንታይ ኣኽብል ደሊ بزعبة دك نستيو نزارب نيرنا مش one of the things that I have in my mind is to conduct a symposium مش هلك on today it's focused on the youth but how about focusing on women one of that region in general but of Eritrea and Tigray in particular we could see حاجة خبز لهم مع التطرح الرقم كندي نجار كن مهار كمن نخيل نو if we za جرنا زلنا symposium سي about 36 يوم تعديهم 10 تقدم معلتينا دار نيرنا think about 36 دقيقة نستيمسين مو بزعباتنا هذا الاكسبيرينس ونكم بزعبا خلق مالك نقرانا مالتي so that is also a homework for both مالتي for both Fayruz and Feven مالتي صغني خنت كايدوز نقدر ناخذ قبل نحكي كل مالتي so that is نحن نحجزنا خلينا we could always co-sponsor نخمز وخنا سراح مالتي in everything way possible مالتي كان بحفش يخن الزارب نحكينا انت اخذ دلي بناي فيفن كأخيد she was talking about مشالكا زي black lives matter ريات زارب نيرا نايس ألم تقول داي تلاعيدو نيرنا حاجة there is always one question about that bothers me بزعبا ناي إرترا ولا تجراي ولا حبشة in general no I mean سألمتي in their faces حاجة كل جزء when they trace their history or their identity, it either goes to if you are a Muslim, it goes to Arabia. If you are a Christian, somehow you want to end up in Israel or something like that, you know. In the meantime, why don't they look themselves at the mirror, no, and see, remember who was it? عوض حبتهم دي استغسكيا
Yes, that was our
ريان يريت ملكعان السا ريان يريخ أن يرن هنا شيء he could easily pass for a brother هنا شيء I just see where does it come from تنهنا blackness where does it come from اللي زحت السبيل أفتيس رقم أنا يتروونيها either it is from Agazian or so and so forth from Yemen or from Israel or from whatever it is nobody asks كابي مسيوس المنا زبل حتى حتى تنين فلتن so that is بعبي بكيلار كالك هبت هزل على الكيا تاني راح أنتي زعما باريا تدري we never talk about how the area to contribute to the slave trade نحنا زعما slave trade كنا زارب كل ناسي it's what happens for example in West Africa بقدامها يعني بزعما بعص يبني التمرتي مالتي we always give some kind of teachings up هنا اجي بزعما بعص تمرت خركم كله I was مصحف خلنا بجميله ما تبزح فلطه سلازي نبرن what I found out was in the 19th century it is a trade ناي بعص it was slavery in the 19th century بطرح ببعص زحلفوا 210 شح برايو نيرو مالتي These were not كاب مشان لكو باريا خنول كلنا كاب ببسحت خاب أورومو يمسنيرو again from مشان لك زوم after جماعة جمزلو سلمتي كاب حبيشة خيترفون بارايو نبي يخدنيرو شيوتون the Arab world مالتي the Arab world خالص نبر more or less it's a huge بعد ساعة راح ينبر بتن خلقتنا أشتو قتماتات كم دي مارسا تخلاي قال ماله كل ندحرو سيدكاس it's a huge number of people were being engaged. We never talk about that كا نسوين تسمعني كال انت اخذ دلي انا يسجز اب وندرفul زخونه تكسايني راب زعما نور مملاس از مشاركه من انا اقول كونا لو زبلا برغت يوحنس من ساعه تحجي درجه تدريبها مالتي مخنيات تايز بالنيرو تبيت ما اسرتات زملنا برو هاجر ناسي صيل بوليتيكا بقلت راح يكون سايد نبور نخنورو لهم سب مش هلكا واس اخلوف تعدي بومي مليت بيت ما اسرتات بالنيرو مالتي كالي جن مشالوتهم ناي تجراي زهونا كاب تجراي كاب مقلي بتاع مسكونهم دلي مخنياتو ريغمهم يخونو ناي كن في حدش and ناي خصوها ناي ويني I don't think you have seen that one Fayruz probably ويني أبرها هيوانيرا ويني أبرها is from مغلي and she gave us a presentation on the feminist movement, feminist movement that happened in Tigray. It was before the war.
Oh, I missed it. I know about
you
your
know about
but
it, yeah?
I missed it.
Yeah,
I know
I
about
missed
them
it.
from this, not from this person, but thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right, okay. So how مشالك كل نجر كميجر interconnected مخانو خريو إلينو. تمالي remember سنايت تخلي by the way sister of Feven Feven Haftaa she gave us a presentation on feminism and you could easily see how that kind of a feminist movement in fact it happened only in Tigray in that area it never happened in Addis Ababa or in Asmara Tigray happened no so how all of this is interconnected مالتي So well انت اخذ دلي بتاع مصبغ نيرو لو ما عملت بفليز ولا خساينات ودينا يوم مثلني بتاع مصبغ نيرو I think everyone did a wonderful job بتعم مسكنكم يغني لنا خو حلفنا دونا نقول لنا بتاع مسكنكم صراحه ان شاء الله دعتنا خبيركم خصمو صمو ها بزي خود سلازي كستو تكست غير هلا يلا حجي فيفن بعليه جميري بعليه خود نزي لا مسلزي
Oh my God.
بعلاه تدوت تاخذوا دال في ناس الذي قدمنا بتعمي اوكي
Oh well, oh well.
Oh well.
Quite a day. What a day. What a day. It was amazing. بتعمل صبحو معلت وعلنا بزح نجر تماهرنا لنا كمان سي overwhelm قبرك مغنياتو بزح نجر like there were so many aha moments for me like okay خمسة غوين you know it's about us you know it's about each and every one of us زعبا نفسنا إنا كنمهار وعلنا تخوين حدا زي ملس زي نرخبولو نجارات له way كنقبرو ندلمو we don't know how حسب عبيلكا and then you just go to bed لو ما عنتكن بزح كنقبرو نخل partnershipات زلنا resource أبت communityنا وشت زلو resource أبتناتنا حبرتسب مالتي قال كله تماهيرنا لنا سمعنا قبل بنا حد الرؤية زبلنا يبقى حكي I didn't even take a lunch break, coffee break or anything because I didn't want to miss anything. It was that good. Thank you everyone that presented. تتساتفنت بتعم بغلتيو بتيوم present سجبرون بتيوم ذا سمعتي engage مقبار أبحثو أبريتو was amazing. Thank you all. I appreciate you all. I had really fun watching the whole thing. يلا نيلنا يلمدن.
Good job.
Okay.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Alright.
شيشة حويون نايتا زرقم كيا بأخات تعطي عند زمرت.
No, سأقول يقولون حفشاتي مسخات مدرخون كم بزح بعبي وهاني خاب عبيتي خاب مهران أبزي كنا نركب كلنا أنا بعلنا يتي زعبي نجا عبي تمرتنا نركب زلنا إزي أب زحالف وعزو نوح سلا زي تسرح اللمبر زي تسرح الليل بزحنا حالفنا نيرنا سلازي حجون معي حلفون بستخدم متن بزي زلنا يو كم تي ممري سلف سلا زلو ናይ ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ድዩ ናይ ገጠምቲ ድዩ ናይ ገለ እንዳበልና ነናቱ መድረክ ጌርና እንድሕር እንተናዮ ብዙሕ ነገር ክንከስብ ኢና ገለ ሰባት ከምዚ ንምንታይ ኢኹም ኣብ ዘረባ ትሕልፍዎ ገለ ብሉ እዮም እቲ ኩንነትና ዘይፈለጥና ዋላ ሓንቲ ነገር ክንገብር ኢና ነብስኻ ኣበይ ከም ዘሎ እንድሕር ፈሊጥካ ኢኻ መፍትሒ ተምፃእ ደረጃኻ ምንታይ ከም ዘሎ ምስ ፈለጥካ ኢኻ ምስ መን ከም ትሰርሕ ትፈልጥ ደረጃ ኣባና ፀጊሙ ዘሎ እንታይ እዩ ደረጃና እንታይ ዓቕሚ ዘለና እንታይ እዩ ዘይብልና ኣየላለናን ኣለና ስለዚ እቲ ዘይብልና ነገር ወይ ዘለና ነገር ምሰላ ኣለና እቲ ክንምልኦ ንኽእል ነገር ክንምልእ ንኸይድ ኣበይ ከም ንምልኦ ከዓ ንፈልጥ እዘይኮነ ግና ኣልሃዋ ክንከይድ ኢና ንቃልስ ዘለና ቶም መንእስያት ስለዚ ንኡ እንታይ ሽም ጌርኩም ሸለላ ይትበልዎ ብዙሕ ነገር እዩ ዝሕግዝ ትኸድዎ ዘለኹም ትሰርሕዎ ዘለኹም ኣብዚ መፅኦም ዘለዉ ወይ ዝወዓሉ መንእስያት ትማልሎምን ከዓኒ ብዙሕ ኣበርክቶ ዘለዎም እዮም ግን ገለገለ እንታይ ይብል ካልኦት ሰባት ዝሰርሕዎ ስለ ዘለውስ ኣነስ ብዙሕ ኣስተዋፅኦ የብለይን ይብል ኢሉ ንኣብነት ደሳሊ በረኸ ዘምፅኦ እዚኣ ንድሕሪት እንታይ ሽሚያ ክሳራ እያ ክትከውን ስለዚ ብዝተኻለ መጠን ኩላቶም እተው ዝገብርዎ ኣብ ዝተፈላለየ እቲ ድሌታት ዋላ ድሌታት ኣነ ከም ሽሻይ ናይ መምህር ዮሴፍ ገብረ ሂወት እንድሕር ደስ ዝብለኒ ኮይኑ ናቱ እንድሕር በኺሩኒ የለኹን ማለት እዩ ናይ ውፉይ ደስ ዝብሎ ሰብ እንድሕር ኣልዩ ናይ ውፉይ እንድሕር በኺርዎ የለን ሰብ ስለዚ ናይ ኩሉ ሕብረተሰብ ዋላ ኣባሃህላ ዋላ እዩ ናትካ ተተመስጦ ዘለዎ ሰብ ስለዚ ናይ ዝተፈላለየ ሰባት ዝተፈላለየ ቅርፂ ሒዙ ይምፃእ ብዘየገድስ ካብ ምባል ዓዱ ክውዕል የብሎም ዝብል ዝኽእል ይቐኒልና ዮሴፍ ገብረ ሂወት ከዓ ከይተሓለልካ 20 ዓመት ዝኸድካዮ ጉዕዞ ተስፋ እንዳረኸብካሉ ትኸይድ ኣለኻ ይብል ይኣምን ታንክስ